When you think of the military, you probably imagine soldiers training for war, defending borders, or responding to major disasters. But sometimes, armed forces are pulled into operations so bizarre they sound more like science fiction than reality. Point 1. Such incident unfolded in the year 2000, deep in the countryside of Chile. It began with mysterious deaths of livestock and ended with rumors of alien creatures, secret military encounters, and NASA cargo planes quietly touching down to retrieve something the world was never supposed to see. This is the chilling account of what may have been the capture of a real chupacabra and how an international agency swept it all under the rug. Throughout history, strange animal deaths have ignited legends. One of the most notorious is that of the chupacabra, a blood-sucking creature said to stalk livestock in Latin America, particularly Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Chile. Back in 1975, a small town in Puerto Rico called Moca awoke to a horrific discovery. 15 cows, 3 goats, 2 geese, and a pig, all found dead, yet completely intact. There were no bite marks, no torn flesh. The only thing missing? Their blood. Each animal had a cluster of puncture wounds, 3 circular holes on their necks or chests. Locals were baffled. Rumors spread of a vampire beast, and although media coverage was light at the time, the story didn't die. It only waited. Fast forward to 1995, and Puerto Rico was once again under siege. This time, in Canavanas, over 150 animals and pets were found dead in a single night. All showed signs identical to the Mocha attacks: blood drained, bodies untouched, and those same 3 puncture marks. Now, the media took notice. Eyewitnesses began reporting sightings of a bipedal creature standing 4 to 5 feet tall, kangaroo-like. Legs, leathery skin, and glowing red or yellow eyes. Some said it had a spiny back and even wings. The name, chupacabra, stuck, Spanish for goat sucker. By the end of the 90s, sightings and reports of mutilated animals spread across South and Central America, even into the southern United States. It seemed the creature wasn't just real. It was multiplying. As the world crossed into the new millennium, Chile, a long, narrow strip of country along South America's Pacific coast, was settling into democracy after decades under military rule. Hopes were high. People looked to the future. But then came April 2000. In the central Biobío region, just outside the small town of Tucapel, residents noticed strange lights floating across the night sky. Witnesses described them descending silently, too smooth for helicopters, too quiet for aircraft, before vanishing into the thick trees. The next morning, locals found a circular patch of crushed vegetation, only brambles flattened, as if something had landed but left no trace of engines or wheels. It wasn't just curious, it was unsettling. Then, things escalated. On April 29th, Jose Ismael Pino, a 59-year-old ranch worker, was finishing his shift at the Esperanza Ranch. He was alone, accompanied only by 2 dogs. As he made his final rounds as he stepped toward the pasture, he saw what he believed to be a bull roaming free. Cursing under his breath, he'd been told all livestock were secured. He shouted and approached, but when he got closer, Jose froze. That wasn't a bull. What stood before him was a muscular creature about 5 feet tall. It had long claws, huge fangs, and leathery wings tucked against its sides. Its posture was almost human. Terrified, Jose ran back to the barn and unleashed. The dog's point one returned minutes later, its neck soaked in blood. By dawn, for sheep and 1 cow were found dead across neighboring farms. No torn limbs, no devoured flesh, just lifeless bodies, completely drained of blood. Panic spread fast. Ranch owner Jorge Venegas told workers to go home before dark and installed floodlights. He even began carrying a loaded shotgun. "We don't know what this thing is," he told reporters, "but I'm not taking any chances with my children." Reports started flooding in from across the region. In Calama, a young man riding his bike one night saw a creature crouched in tall grass beside a lifeless dog, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Before he could react, the thing grabbed the dog and sprinted toward him, covering 50 meters in seconds, then veered away into the night. A few nights later, a group of 8 teenagers exploring near the lower river encountered a short, hairy, humanoid creature. When it spotted them, It leapt an enormous distance and vanished into a cave. The teens ran for their lives that on a nearby hillside, residents spotted something scurrying vertically up a sheer cliff face, a reptilian figure with wings. When it reached the summit, it unleashed a guttural, inhuman shriek that echoed for miles, until this point, the creature seemed to target only animals. But on the night of May 7th, that changed. In the village of Santa Elena de Odo, a man named Alejandro Canales was making his way home after checking on his rabbit pens. As he passed through a dark alleyway, something slammed into him from above, sharp. Claws tore into his back as a heavy creature dug in. Thrashing wildly, he managed to throw it off. When he spun around with his flashlight, he saw it. A squat, ape-like beast with golden, piercing eyes, leathery wings, and dripping fangs that it hissed, and vanished into the night. This attack sent shockwaves through Chile. The beast had now tasted human blood. With media pressure mounting and public panic growing, Chilean authorities stepped in. But according to some reports, the military had already taken action. On May 9th, a Chilean platoon was said to have entered the Rodrigo retreat mine in the desert north of Calama. Inside, they reportedly encountered 3 creatures. Accounts differ. Some say the soldiers opened fire first. Others claim the creatures attacked. Either way, the firefight ended with 1 soldier dead and 3 chupacabras captured, a male, a female, and a juvenile. But that wasn't all. 2 days later, a second patrol searching the outskirts discovered a strange pit in the sand, filled with alien-looking eggs. Reptilian? Insectoid? No one could say for sure. They collected samples, unsure what to make of it. Meanwhile, another patrol reported killing 2 more creatures and capturing a third. Was this a full-blown infestatic then? Things took an even stranger. Turned out on May 12th, 2 massive Boeing 767 cargo planes touched down in Santiago, Chile. Both were reportedly marked with NASA insignia. After a brief stop, they flew north toward Calama. That same day, the local El Loa airport was shut down, allegedly to make room for an incoming unmarked helicopter. According to witnesses, the chopper picked up containers from a local military barracks. Inside those containers? No one knows, but most believe they held at least 1 living chupacabra, possibly others, and the eggs. The NASA officials never acknowledged the incident. Architect and local resident Dagoberto Current later claimed he'd spoken with people who saw the transfer firsthand. The creature, he said, had been held temporarily at a military site before NASA operatives took it away. Strangely, not all versions of the story align. Some mention 1 creature, others speak of multiple specimens and eggs. But every account agrees on one thing: NASA showed up and took over. Why would a U.S. space agency get involved in a creature hunt in Chile? Unless, of course, these weren't just unknown animals. Were they alien? Genetically engineered? NASA spokesperson Brian Welch, when asked, scoffed at the idea. If people want to believe we're creating monsters or beaming rays from satellites, he said, they're not calling us for comment. They're just spreading rumors. Yet, the rumors persist. By the end of May, the sightings faded. The attacks stopped. Life returned to normal, at least on the surface. Skeptics argue that many of the so-called chupacabra sightings were really wild dogs with mange, hairless, diseased, mistaken in the dark. But even those critics admit, mange doesn't give an animal wings. It doesn't let them leap 20 feet in a single bound. And it certainly doesn't explain why NASA cargo planes would fly halfway around the world for a coyote. What really happened in Chile during those 7 weeks in 2000? Were these creatures the result of some biological experiment? Visitors from another world? Or merely victims of a mass panic spun up by legends and local fear? We may never know. But the fact remains, dozens of reports, hundreds of animal deaths, at least 1 human attack, and a secretive response involving soldiers, eggs, and men in unmarked helicopters. Whatever truth lies buried in the deserts of Chile, it was strange enough for the military to get involved and for NASA to quietly take something away. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of Latin America's strangest modern mysteries, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories from the edge of the unexplained, and let us know in the comments. Do you think the chupacabra is real? Or is it just another monster born in the fog of fear?